For years, humanity lived under the shadow of the Coalition of Stars. It was an alliance of many alien civilizations that stretched across hundreds of systems. They had advanced fleets, towering space stations, and a strict set of rules that every member was forced to obey. Humanity, a young species compared to them, had joined as a junior partner with hopes of peace, learning, and growth. At first, things seemed fair. The Coalition promised trade, technology, and protection, but as time passed, the truth became clear. The Coalition did not see humanity as equals. They saw Earth as a resource and its people as workers to be controlled. Taxes grew heavier each year. Colonies were forced to give away rare minerals at unfair prices. Human ships had to wait for days at alien ports while Coalition ships received priority. Yet through all of this, humanity stayed patient. Leaders on Earth and Mars often repeated the same words: stay calm, endure, one day respect will come. Ordinary people believed in those words because patience had always been a human strength. Humanity had endured wars, disasters, and hardships before. They thought they could endure this too, but patience has a limit. The breaking point came quietly, almost by accident. A civilian colony transport, the Morning Star, was on its way to a new settlement near Proxima Centauri. On board were families, workers, and children, all hopeful for a fresh start on a new world. The ship carried no weapons. It was only a vessel of settlers chasing dreams. As the ship traveled through Coalition-controlled space, a patrol vessel stopped it. The Coalition captain accused the Morning Star of smuggling goods, though there was no evidence. The human captain protested, showing the documents, the cargo list, and the faces of the families on board. But the alien officer ignored all proof. Tension grew, voices rose, and in a moment of cold arrogance, the patrol ship fired. The Morning Star was destroyed. No one survived. When news reached Earth, shock turned into silence. The Coalition called it a mistake, saying the humans had resisted inspection. They promised an investigation, but no justice followed. To the Coalition, it was just another incident in the endless business of empire. To humanity, it was the final insult. Across the Earth, screens replayed the burning wreckage of the Morning Star. On Mars, workers paused in their domes, staring at the broadcasts with clenched fists. On the colonies of Europa, Titan, and beyond, grief spread like fire. Thousands of lives had been taken, and once again humanity was told to accept it. But this time no one accepted it. In the Great Hall of Earth's United Assembly, leaders gathered. Some argued for more patience. We cannot stand against the Coalition, they warned. Their fleets are larger. Their technology is older than our entire species. But others stood and answered with burning voices. If we stay silent now, we are nothing. If we stay patient, our children will always live as servants. This must end. For the first time in centuries, every human faction agreed. Earth and Mars put aside their disputes. Colonies that once argued over resources now spoke as one. Humanity, divided for so long, was suddenly united. Ordinary people felt the same fire. Pilots who once carried cargo signed up for military service. Engineers who built harvest machines offered to design weapons. Scientists who studied stars turned their knowledge to strategy. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now the galaxy would learn what patience, once broken, could unleash. On the streets, the words spread quickly, repeated like a heartbeat. No more. No more taxes. No more insults. No more lives lost for nothing. It was not a cry of anger alone. It was a cry of unity. Humanity's patience had ended, and with its ending came a strength no one had expected. Far above Earth, fleets that had long been neglected powered up again. Old warships, dusty in their docks, began to glow with new life as workers refitted them with upgrades. In hidden shipyards around Mars, secret projects that had been waiting for approval were suddenly activated. Across the outer colonies, ordinary citizens donated materials and time to prepare for what everyone knew was coming. The galaxy did not see it yet, but the spark had been lit. The destruction of the Morning Star was more than a tragedy. It was the moment humanity's patience snapped. And when it snapped, it did not break into weakness. It became iron. The Coalition had always believed humans were too divided, too inexperienced, too weak to resist. But in their arrogance, they had forgotten a truth that history had shown countless times. Humanity's greatest strength appeared not in comfort, but in struggle. And now, for the first time, the galaxy was about to see what happened when humanity stopped enduring and started fighting back. The Six-Day War had not begun yet, but in that single moment, with one civilian ship turned to ashes, it had already been decided. The destruction of the Morning Star had changed everything. For decades, humanity had endured, speaking politely at coalition meetings, bowing to unfair rules and waiting for respect that never came. Now their patience was gone. The United Assembly declared that humanity would no longer obey the coalition. It was a bold step, but no one spoke against it. Every leader, from Earth to the outer colonies, signed their name on the declaration. The coalition did not take the warning seriously. In their grand halls, alien leaders laughed at the idea of humans fighting back. To them, humanity was still the same young race they had pushed around for years. They believed Earth would shout for a few weeks, then return to silence. They expected submission. What they received instead was the first strike. In hidden shipyards across the solar system, preparation had been taking place for years. Humanity had been patient, but it had not been blind. Quietly, engineers had studied alien technology, not copying it, but improving it. Old ships, long thought outdated, had been refitted with clever designs. Human scientists had found ways to make weapons adaptive, able to change energy signatures mid-battle, slipping past shields. They created stealth drives that confused sensors, making entire fleets appear like shadows. On the first day of the war, these shadows moved. The target was a coalition supply hub orbiting Alpha Centauri. It was guarded by a fleet of modern cruisers confident in their superiority. When human ships appeared on their sensors, the coalition commander expected an easy victory. He ordered his fleet forward, certain the battle would be quick, but the battle was not what he expected. The first human warships looked old, patched together, their hulls scarred by years of service. The aliens laughed, but their laughter ended when the ships vanished from sensors. Human stealth drives flickered on and the battlefield went dark. Then, from every direction, attacks began. Missiles struck from impossible angles. Electronic warfare blinded the alien systems, and adaptive weapons cut through shields like paper. Within an hour, the once proud coalition fleet was in ruins. The humans did not stop there. On Mars, a fleet of colony defense ships launched a daring strike into coalition territory. These were not sleek warships, but converted cargo haulers armed with powerful railguns. Coalition admirals called them junk, but when the first shots landed, entire cruisers broke apart. Human engineers had turned ordinary tools into deadly weapons. By the end of the day, 2 more coalition fleets had been shattered. The galaxy watched in shock. For years, humans had been patient, almost humble. Now they fought with a fury no one expected. Coalition officers who survived the first battles described humans as unpredictable, dangerous, and fearless. They spoke of captains who risked everything to protect their crews, of pilots who flew straight into enemy fire to deliver their attacks. On Earth, news of the victories spread like fire. Crowds cheered in the streets as the names of battles were announced: the Battle of Alpha Centauri, the defense of Mars, the raid at Vega. Families who had lost loved ones on the Morning Star felt a small measure of justice. Humanity had been underestimated, but no longer. The coalition, however, could not believe what was happening. Their commanders insisted these defeats were mistakes, accidents, or tricks. They promised the war would end quickly once their full fleets arrived. Yet in private, fear grew. Reports showed human fleets appearing and disappearing like ghosts, striking supply lines deep behind coalition borders. Worse, captured data revealed that human engineers had taken alien technology and improved it in ways no one thought possible. By the second day, panic began to spread among coalition soldiers. Rumors whispered that humans were not fighting alone, that their machines had a strange intelligence, that their strategies were too clever for a young race. Some even claimed that humans did not fear death, that they fought as though every battle was personal. In truth, it was personal. Every soldier, every pilot, every engineer carried the memory of the Morning Star and the countless years of humiliation before it. In the United Assembly, leaders remained clear. Humanity did not fight for conquest. They fought for respect, for the right to live as equals among the stars. Their orders were simple: strike hard, protect human lives, and never let the coalition forget the cost of arrogance. By the end of the second day, the galaxy was stunned. 3 coalition fleets had been destroyed. Her manships, once mocked as outdated, now carried a reputation of unstoppable determination. The phrase spread across every human world and even into alien channels. Patience is over. Strength has begun, but the war was far from finished. The coalition was vast, with fleets that stretched across 100 systems. Humanity had won the first strike, but everyone knew retaliation would come. And when it came, it would be overwhelming. Still, as human fleets returned to their hidden bases, there was no fear. Instead, there was a steady fire in every heart. For the first time in history, humanity had struck back against the galaxy, and the galaxy had felt it. The 6-day war had truly begun. By the 3rd day of the war, the coalition could no longer dismiss humanity. What had started as a series of sudden attacks had turned into something far greater. Entire fleets had been destroyed, supply lines shattered, and systems once thought untouchable were now vulnerable. The coalition, vast and powerful, had never expected such resistance from what they once called a young and untested race. And yet, humanity stood stronger with every passing hour. The coalition prepared a counterattack, determined to crush this rebellion before it spread. Their target was Mars. The Red World had always been a symbol of human determination, a planet turned into a thriving colony despite its barren surface. The coalition believed that by striking Mars, they could break human morale and force Earth back into submission. But Mars was ready. News of the morning star and the victories of the first 2 days had lit a fire in every colony. People who once argued over resources or politics now worked side by side. Miners, farmers, engineers, and scientists all had the same purpose: defend humanity. In the vast domes of Mars, workers built weapons faster than factories had ever done before. Railguns were mounted on orbital stations. Defense drones, once used for mining, were repurposed into automated fighters. Even old cargo ships were fitted with armor and transformed into makeshift warships. On Earth, volunteers flooded recruitment centers demanding to serve. Across the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, colonies sent supplies and reinforcements without hesitation. Humanity was no longer divided, it was one. When the coalition fleet arrived in orbit around Mars, they came with confidence. Hundreds of sleek ships filled the sky, their commanders certain that the battle would be quick. But the humans waiting for them had no intention of bowing. The first shots came from Mars's surface itself. Massive cannons built in secret over the years opened fire. Blazing energy beams and slugs of metal shot upward, tearing into the coalition formation. At the same time, hidden human fleets emerged from the shadows, their stealth drives flickering on and off as they weaved between enemy lines. The coalition expected fear. Instead, they found ferocity. Pilots who had never been in war flew with courage born of desperation. Farmers who had never touched a weapon became soldiers overnight. Engineers who had once repaired mining machines now repaired starships in the middle of battle, refusing to let a single ship fall if it could still fight. Humanity's strength was not just in its weapons, but in its will. For every human ship destroyed, 2 more seemed to rise. Not because their numbers were endless, but because their unity was unbreakable. Captains refused to abandon one another. Crews fought even when their ships were burning, determined to take their enemies down with them. To the coalition, it was madness. To humanity, it was survival. The battle raged for hours, the skies above Mars filled with fire. Coalition commanders tried to adapt, but human strategies were unlike anything they had faced. Human ships moved unpredictably, changing formations mid-battle. They used traps, feints, and even sacrificed damaged ships as decoys. Every trick, every piece of human creativity was turned into a weapon. By the end of the 3rd day, the coalition fleet was broken. The survivors fled, their pride shattered, their confidence gone. Mars still stood scarred but unbowed. Humanity had defended its heart with courage the galaxy had never seen before. Across the human colonies, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered in streets and domes, cheering the names of heroes who had fought and fallen. Children painted the symbol of Mars on their walls. Families who had feared the worst now believed the impossible was within reach. For the first time, humanity saw not just survival, but victory. In the United Assembly, leaders marveled at what was happening. Never before had humanity been so united. Earth and Mars, once bitter rivals, now worked as allies. Colonies that had been forgotten in distant orbits now felt connected to the fate of all. The Six-Day War had forged something greater than armies. It had forged a single people with a single purpose. The coalition, however, was shaken. They had thought Mars would be humanity's grave. Instead, it had become humanity's shield and symbol. Whispers began to spread among alien soldiers. Perhaps humanity was not weak. Perhaps they were something the galaxy had never faced before. Some even feared that this was only the beginning, that humans had more hidden than anyone imagined. And they were right. For humanity was not fighting for conquest. They were fighting for survival, for respect, for the right to stand as equals among the stars. Their patience had ended, and in its place stood a unity so fierce that even the strongest empire in the galaxy had begun to tremble. As the third day ended, the people of Earth, Mars, and every colony looked up at the night sky. They saw not fear but hope. The war was far from over, and the coalition still had greater fleets waiting. But now humanity knew the truth. United, they were unstoppable. The Six-Day War had shown the galaxy something new. Humanity was no longer a divided species struggling to survive. They were one people, forged in fire, ready to fight for their place among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again. By the fourth day of the war, the galaxy was no longer laughing. What had begun as arrogance, the belief that humans were weak and divided, was now turning into fear. The coalition of stars, vast and ancient, was losing ground, and the reason was simple. Humanity fought differently. The coalition had always depended on numbers and technology. Their fleets were massive, their ships heavily armored, and their strategies old but reliable. Against most species, this was enough. But against humanity, those same strengths had become weaknesses. Humans were creative. They did not follow predictable rules. They bent strategies, reshaped weapons, and found victories where none should have been possible. The first sign of this shift came with the rise of the ghost fleets. These were small groups of human ships that disappeared into deep space, only to reappear behind enemy lines. One moment, coalition commanders believed their supply chains were safe. The next moment, reports arrived of fuel depots exploding, transport convoys destroyed, and communication stations gone dark. The ghost fleet struck fast and then vanished, leaving confusion and fear in their wake. Coalition admirals called it impossible. How could such a young species fight across such distances? Yet it kept happening. Human engineers had designed new navigation methods, allowing their fleets to travel through routes no alien dared to use. Dangerous asteroid fields, unstable wormholes, and radiation zones, places the coalition avoided, were now highways for human ships. To the coalition, these were death traps. To humans, they were opportunities. On the fifth day, the coalition launched a desperate counterattack. Their goal was to reclaim lost pride and force humanity back into submission. They gathered one of the largest fleets in their history and sent it toward the colonies near Vega. Billions across the galaxy watched, expecting the humans to finally fall. But humanity was ready. The battle for Vega became a turning point in the war. Human commanders knew they could not match the enemy ship for ship. Instead, they relied on their greatest weapon, creativity. As the coalition fleet advanced, human forces scattered, drawing them into a vast trap. Mines hidden in the asteroid belt tore into the front lines. Decoy ships projected false signals, tricking coalition squadrons into chasing empty targets. And then, when the enemy was spread thin, the human fleet struck from every side. It was chaos. The coalition, trained to fight in strict formations, found themselves lost. Their admiral shouted orders that no longer mattered. Human ships, smaller but faster, darted through their ranks like wolves among giants. Every strike was calculated, every sacrifice deliberate. By the end of the battle, the coalition fleet was in ruins. Humanity had not just defended Vega. They had destroyed one of the largest forces ever assembled. News of the battle shook the galaxy. Stories spread of human pilots who fought until their ships were nothing but burning wrecks, of engineers who kept vessels alive by repairing them mid-battle, and of commanders who outsmarted fleets 10 times their size. In taverns, markets, and even among alien soldiers, one truth began to spread. Patience had ended, and now the galaxy faced the full force of human determination. Inside the coalition, doubt spread like a disease. Some species questioned why they had started this conflict at all. Others whispered that humanity might not just survive but win. Commanders who once mocked humans now studied their tactics with grim respect. Soldiers, forced to fight, whispered of humans who refused to surrender, who fought even when outnumbered and outgunned. For humanity, however, the war was more than survival. It had become a message. Every strike was a reminder. They had been patient, they had endured insults, but now the galaxy would learn to respect them. Humanity did not seek to conquer. They did not wish to enslave. They wanted only freedom and equality, but to gain it they were willing to fight with everything they had. By the end of the 5th day, the coalition's will was cracking. Retreats became more common, commanders more hesitant. Their fleets, once symbols of dominance, now carried the scars of defeat. Humanity had shown the galaxy that patience, once broken, could transform into power. Across Earth and the colonies there was celebration, but also resolve. Leaders warned that the war was not yet over. The coalition still had vast resources, still had fleets waiting to be deployed. The 6th day would decide everything. But now humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the rising storm, and the galaxy knew it. As night fell on Earth, families looked at the stars with new eyes. No longer did they see a galaxy ruled by others. They saw a future waiting to be claimed. On Mars, workers who had fought during the defense of their home stood proud, knowing their unity had saved humanity. On the outer colonies, children whispered stories of the ghost fleets, of heroes who struck from the shadows and returned victorious. The tide had turned. The coalition, once the masters of the stars, now faced a truth they had never considered. Humanity could not be broken. Not by numbers, not by arrogance, not by fear. And as the 5th day ended, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the 6th. For it was clear now, whatever happened next would decide not just the fate of humanity, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The 6th day of the war dawned with silence across the galaxy. Every world, every station, and every fleet waited. The coalition, humiliated by defeat after defeat, had gathered its last great force. They were determined to end the rebellion once and for all. Humanity, battered but unbroken, prepared for what they knew would be the final and greatest battle. For 6 long days, humanity had fought against impossible odds. They had defended Mars, struck deep into enemy territory, and turned their weakness into strength. Now they stood face to face with the largest fleet the coalition had ever assembled. Thousands of alien warships stretched across the stars, their weapons ready to erase Earth and her colonies. But humanity was ready too. Every ship, every fighter, every defense platform had been prepared, from Earth's orbiting fleets to Mars's hidden cannons, from the mining colonies of the asteroid belt to the icy outposts of Europa. Humanity stood united. Volunteers filled every role, from pilots in the skies to engineers working deep inside machines. Children carried messages, old men repaired circuits, and mothers guided defense drones. Humanity was not a divided collection of worlds anymore. It was one people, one voice, one will. The final battle began above Earth. Coalition ships advanced in perfect formation, their commanders confident that sheer numbers would crush the humans at last. Waves of energy fire lit up the skies, tearing into the outer defenses. But humanity had learned. They had studied every mistake, every weakness, and every victory of the last 5 days. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, human fleets scattered. Coalition admirals expected retreat, but it was a trap. Hidden stations powered up and unleashed volleys of missiles. Ghost fleets appeared once again. Emerging from dangerous regions of space the aliens dared not enter. Human ships darted in and out of formation, striking with speed and precision. The coalition's strength became its downfall. Their massive fleet, designed for rigid order, broke apart under the chaos of human tactics. Squadrons collided, signals jammed, and confusion spread through their ranks. Human pilots, fearless and determined, exploited every opening. Small ships flew straight into the heart of enemy formations, disabling capital vessels from within. Every sacrifice bought time. Every act of courage pushed humanity closer to victory. By midday of the 6th day, the skies above Earth burned with wreckage. Half the coalition fleet was gone, and the rest was retreating in disarray. Humanity had achieved the impossible. They had not only survived, but they had shattered the greatest military power in the galaxy. The war was over. When the coalition leaders finally accepted defeat, they signed an armistice with trembling hands. Humanity's representatives stood proud, not asking for conquest or riches, but only for recognition. Humanity demanded respect, equality, and the right to live free. And for the first time, the galaxy listened. News of the armistice spread across the stars. On Earth, people filled the streets with cheers and tears. On Mars, the domes glowed with celebrations. Across the colonies, families embraced, knowing their sacrifices had not been in vain. The names of heroes were spoken with reverence. Pilots who never returned, engineers who worked until their last breath, leaders who guided with courage. Their memory became eternal. But the victory was more than just military. Something deeper had been forged. The Six-Day War had united humanity in a way history had never seen. Old rivalries vanished. Nations that once argued now stood side by side. Colonies that once felt forgotten now felt part of something greater. Humanity had discovered its true strength. Not in weapons, not in numbers, but in unity and will. The galaxy, too, was forever changed. Other species, long oppressed by the coalition, looked to humanity with hope. If this young race could stand against the mighty alliance and win, then perhaps freedom was possible for all. The coalition itself, humbled and fractured, could no longer rule through arrogance. Humanity's patience had snapped, and with it, the balance of power across the stars had shifted. In the years that followed, the Six-Day War became legend. Children learned of the Morning Star, the ship whose destruction had lit the spark. They studied the battles of Mars and Vega, where courage overcame fear. They told stories of the ghost fleets of ordinary men and women who became warriors, and above all, they remembered the sixth day, when humanity proved its strength to the galaxy. But for humanity, the greatest victory was not the fall of the coalition. It was the discovery of who they truly were. For too long they had been patient, enduring insult after insult. Yet in the fire of war they had learned that patience was not weakness. It was strength held back, waiting for the right moment. And when that patience ended, the galaxy itself had felt the result. The Six-Day War was over, but its message would echo forever. Humanity was no longer to be underestimated. Humanity was no longer to be dismissed. From that day on, humanity stood among the stars not as servants but as equals, strong, united, and unafraid. And the galaxy, once blind to their potential, would never forget the species whose patience, once broken, had changed the stars forever.